Hello. So this is video number 2 on how to utilize the input variables within the query optimization checker. Let me always do this, but let me verify I'm sharing the correct screen real quick. Okay. So if you haven't looked at video 1 yet and you want to better understand how to utilize XPaths in order to probably say XPath expression, but regardless, if you want to use XPaths in order to script the content, feel free to go watch that video. Depending on where you're watching this, is probably right before this within the blog post, or it might be before this within the video series on YouTube. But there is another video that goes over how to write this XPath right here and some of the different options. So that is not going to be part of this video. What this video is going to be is walking through the rest of these right here. So we're going to go over how to fill out the rest of this form to utilize this tool. Again, at this point, you should already have the tool set up. You should have already created your client ID in Google Search Console, added that into the config.py file, and then came to this point to actually update the document here. So first off, I'm going to open up my Google Drive really quick, just because I want to verify the folder structure to ensure the Colab notebooks is correct. So we do see my drive to Colab notebooks is what we're seeing right here. This content drive is what is out of the box before my drive with Google Drive. So if your folder structure looks like this right now, you should be good. If it does not, it does need to look like this, or the tool will not work. There are even some nuances that if you update this right here to match how your folder structure really works, you could run into some problems. If there's some reason that you really need to do it that way, like you can't have it living on this base my drive within the Colab notebooks, please reach out to me. I can let you know the areas within the script that aren't really available out of the box. You would have to kind of click into the code and make some adjustments to adjust in order to do so. But if you can make it so it is this exact path, that's going to be the easiest way to do this. Secondarily, you want to put the domain lookup. What we want this to be is just whatever the home page is. So the example I did was on Inceive. So if you just type in the home page, copy whatever it is, paste it in here, you should be fine. So exactly like that, we just want it to be the home page. The reason there is 2 of these and it's not one for the Google Search Console property is because there are domain properties now. Domain properties are that thing that nests together all of the different domains when it comes down to, or not the different domains, but the different, secure, non-secure URL, whether it has www or non-www, whether there is subdomains or whatever else. That's the new thing with Search Console. I say new, but it's been around for, I really don't know, maybe like 2 years at this point. But if you do have a domain property, what you're going to want to do is this structure right here. It still works completely fine, but you'll want this structure. So if Inceive was on a domain property, what it would look like is this right here. So definitely check that out. It should be very clear when you're in Search Console if you kind of click into the top left navigational pane to see what the property is. It says domain property right under it. It should be very, very clear. And again, it's just this structure right here. Other than that, we have the start date and the end date. This is just a date range. So there's a few things that you really want to keep in mind here. First, the start and end date, it's going to pull everything within that, right? So this is 41 days within this date range right here. I note this right here, but you really don't want this to be longer than about 3 months. Reason being, while Google Search Console does have 16 months of data, you can imagine if you're looking 16 months back, some keywords that are currently ranking for a page might no longer rank for that page. And therefore, you might have some inaccurate assumptions, or it's not really assumptions, it's inaccurate data that's saying you're getting, it's not even really inaccurate data. It's data that's not telling a true story of what your current opportunity is. It's telling if all things were equal over 16 months, here's things that are opportunities, but they aren't. They change a lot. Google's changing a lot. There's been algorithm updates. There have been changes in SERP intent. There's been all kinds of things. So you do want to keep it close to where we are currently to ensure you're not getting keywords that once were ranking for a page, but no longer are. So keep that in mind. I do understand if you're a seasonal business, let's say you're a flower delivery business, and you're currently in December and your peak is February for Valentine's Day and then May for Mother's Day. You're like, oh, well, I want to analyze those periods. You really shouldn't, just because a lot's changed since then. I would still keep it, the last few months, unfortunately, just to ensure you don't run into any inadvertent problems there. Hopefully that makes sense. Moving on from there, we have the GSE sorting field and the GSE limit pages. So there's two purposes for these. So you see click sum, impression sum. So what these are is just saying when we're limiting the pages, what do we want the pages to be ordered by? So it's going to give you this right here saying we're going to give you the top 40 pages in the list, and how the top 40 pages are going to be organized is by the clicks, the sum of the clicks. Generally speaking, if you're in a well-established domain, you should probably be using click sum. The only reason I included impressions is for if you're on a domain that doesn't have a ton of really good rankings right now, maybe it's a pretty new domain, or you're just coming in and they've never done SEO before, even if they're an established business, they might not have a lot of clicks and impressions, and it might muddy up the data set if you're kind of judging things based on clicks, because some of the most valuable pages might be things that have a lot of impressions right now, but not a lot of clicks. So that's why that's there. Generally speaking, I would keep that on click sum, but there is that option. And again, that's just to order the data. And then the number of pages, you can make that whatever you want. I've done this on 600 pages at once, and it still didn't take more than, I think, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 10 minutes max to run the entire crawl, because it is crawling all these pages. So it does take a little bit of time. On 40 pages, it takes about a minute, probably under 2 minutes. At 500 pages, 5, 6 or so minutes, it is crawling all of those pages. So keep that in mind. It is fairly fast. And usually what I do is I ask myself, how many pages do I really want to optimize right now? If it's every page on the site, sure. If you want to do something else, if you want to do a smaller subsection, that works as well. You could set the brand exclusions, and these could be they could be separated by bars. So you could do multiple brands for misspellings and things like that. So you see Inceive and Insev, just because Insev without the second E is a common misspelling of Inceive. And you could do a lot of things here. You could do, I don't know, if we thought interactive was going to be a brand, interactive without Inceive is no longer really a brand keyword, but I'm just saying you could chain as many of these as you could chain as many of these as you want, just to ensure you're getting all the different brand variations, because I do know, especially for larger brands, there often are lots and lots of misspellings, especially if the brand name itself isn't like a common word or not easily pronounced or things like that. So just keep that in mind. You could chain as many of these as you want, and what it's going to do is it's going to exclude any keywords with that in it. So anything containing Inceive, not exactly matching it, anything containing Inceive will now be eliminated from the data set. It's not really necessary because brand rankings should all be in position 1. We're really looking for non-brand opportunities, so I recommend excluding those. If you don't want to exclude them, unfortunately, if you don't put anything, it kind of messes with the tool. So I just recommend doing something like that that's not actually going to exclude anything. We see set impressions less than X exclusion to remove irrelevant queries. Irrelevant's probably not the perfect word there, more like inconsequential maybe. So if you're on a very, very big website, let's say let's say we're Dell Computers, some very, very large, big name website, maybe CNET, whatever else, just a very, very large website. If something has 5 impressions in the last 41 days, that query is almost certainly not going to be something we really need to optimize for. anything that's relevant to the domain and actually has enough value for us to go out of our way to target. Probably has maybe 1,000 impressions, probably even more than that. And we just don't even want the extra data to make spreadsheets slower and whatever else, right? So what you could do here is you could set a threshold for the number of impressions. To be clear, the raw data that is excluded or not excluded, that is exported from the data set will still have all the queries. You'll still have that all available. You can also just rerun it if you don't like the results with the threshold that you define. But I do recommend doing this. It just makes things a lot easier to handle after the initial data pull. If you're on a small domain though, like Inceive, it either isn't necessary or you could do something small like 5 like I have here. The last item is to set the page inclusions, not exclusions. Oops, I keep clicking on that. Not exclusions, the inclusions. So third time's a charm. So if you click in here, you can click in this as much as you want. Just if you double click out here, it's going to open it up and you're going to have to see the code. But when you're looking at this right here, the inclusions are anything you specifically want. So if you're on a very large domain, you might not, and you might want to specifically look at certain parts. Maybe you want to do like blog and article and help. You're just trying to find like editorial stuff on a huge e-commerce site. Or maybe you don't want editorial, so you just want anything containing category or product. So just like the brand exclusions, except inclusions, and this is not an and condition. And condition would have meant if I put category and product, a URL has to contain both of those in order to fit. It's an or condition, meaning we could put category or product, so the resulting data set will have all of the URLs, or at least in this, it would be the top 40, but I can do more. It'll have all of those that are based on URLs containing category or product. So it could be very useful, especially if you're on very, very large sites. Again, like I was saying before, if you use this, you will still have raw data that has all of the pages in it. That filter actually happens after the raw data is extracted. So you will still have all the pages, or you could of course rerun it without those exclusions if you change your mind. Hopefully that all makes sense. I know I've said this in every video, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any kind of questions. I'm giving as much detail as I can. I realize there's a few nuanced areas of this, so I definitely want to ensure everyone has the information they need in order to use this effectively. Thanks.